Success in business is full of challenges. President and CEO of the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce, Tam Hawkins, is creating opportunities and providing the tools for success to meet those challenges. She is not only a success story herself, but a mentor and a visionary. So I get to welcome today Tam Hawkins. So good to have you here.
Oh, it's good to be here.
So Tam, tell me what all that means here in Austin for you to be the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce.
So it means that I get to work in a city where people really care and we work fiercely together. We've had some issues with a fledgling Black demographic. And so there are a lot of really smart people, smarter than I am, that are trying to get a solution around a complex issue. And so it means that I get to bend policymakers' ears. It means that I get to help small business owners realize their dreams. The reason why I got into this is to really help people put their kids through college and help people have a legacy business that they could leave to their children. And so that's incredibly rewarding.
What are the different kinds of businesses that you serve?
We have a myriad of businesses. We have a high concentration in tech businesses and startups here because we're Silicon Hill, so it's natural that all demographics would reflect that. We still, as Black business owners, have a higher concentration of service-related businesses. So think of food and other businesses of that nature. And then we also have high professional services as well. And so we really follow, it's a microcosm, so we follow all of the trends of the general population.
So it must be interesting working with people from all walks and all the different things that they're doing in their businesses.
It really is. One of the wealthiest men in America calls Austin home, or at least one of his homes, and he happens to be a Black man. And then I have like small, micro business owners who are calling and saying, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know. I just know that I have this idea and desire to do something.
So what do you see for women here in Austin, business owners?
Women are the fastest growing segment of the business community. Black women being neck and neck with Latina women, growing that market and demographic. So what that means to us is that we better as a community, and not just in Austin, but nationwide, figure out how to make certain that they are successful because they're changing the landscape of business as we know it. So it's an incredible time to be a woman, I believe.
What kind of work do you do with these women as they're coming to you with your ideas?
We know that women business owners only scale at $1 million only at 3%. The national average for general business is at 6%. So what we're looking to do is make certain that we can get them to move from their business and their kitchen and their home to high scalable, high growth industries, and making certain they have the tools that they need to be successful. And so again, if that demographic's growing at a rapid pace, we have to keep up with training and making certain that they have all the tools that they need.
Are there grants available?
There are grants available. What I'm looking to hope to see more of is more programs that are geared towards scaling businesses upwards instead of just really how to start a business, which we do a really good job here in the city of Austin. The city of Austin has an incredible ecosystem for entrepreneurs, women included, but making certain that once they've started, like how do they grow? What are the next steps? What does that look like for them? And we know women are incredibly smart. They are able to do a lot more with less. And so how do we get them to navigate that into a profitable way?
So I know that you've been working with some young women too.
Helping them navigate what they will face in the professional arena, and if they want to start a business, and putting them in front of people that can help them kind of work through that process and take them to the next level. So that's been a lot of fun, and it's a passion for me as well.
I read a quote of yours, and you said, I think the Chamber really has to be known as a resource for the people in the community that it represents. So how are you a resource?
We do that in several different sectors. One is we do that in advocacy, making certain that we're on top of what policymakers and the decisions that they are making that might impact business owners. We do that in understanding what the resource is in terms of education. So we explore what's it like in Black education in this area, in the state in general, and how can we help those people who are poised to have programs that actually speak to that need. So we go over a lot of data and analyze it and then say, hey, here's what we think should happen. We also have our own particular signature programs. One of my favorite ones is called the Taste of Black Austin, and it's held annually each year. And what it does is explore the economic and historical perspective of Black food entrepreneurship here in the city. And it applies it from a historical perspective, and it matches it with a photography exhibit. So part of my charge is that if we had a demographic that's leaving the city, how do we build programs that speak to those outside of the city that make them want to come? Because if I can get them to visit, I can get them to move here or relocate their businesses. But and I know that's not a popular sentiment here, but when you have a demographic, if you're the only major market growth city where you have Blacks that are leaving the city, that's a problem for all of us. So my programs have to speak to a need and a sense of community that integrates us all, quite frankly. And so it's one of my favorite programs because it's multicultural and it speaks to the historical perspective. It has art and has these high-end chefs doing amazing things with food, and we're able to gauge like their success at night because they're able to get a business that evening. They come out with catering business that evening. They get someone to visit the restaurant. I mean, and we're able to see that immediately, whereas galas and other fundraisers don't always do that.
It's all Keep Austin Weird.
Yeah.
We love our food trucks. We love all those kind of things. So tell me what that involves.
So last year we did farm to table. So we wanted to really look at what Black farmers did in the nation and here in Austin. This year we're doing Green Book. So we will go over like historical markers and traditional Black businesses in the area, and so it'll probably be a lot of Southern cuisine that's high end. And so I have people still asking me about the rabbit from last year. They had this phyllo pastry dish puff with rabbit, and it melted in your mouth and was amazing. And one of the chefs from Emmer and Rye, he makes these incredible, delectable desserts that look like a piece of art. And so they tie in the Texas native cuisine with their interpretation of what that looks like today.
That's wonderful. So now we all need to go eat. So.
It's a lot of fun.
So what are the unique challenges to Black business owners here in Austin?
All businesses need capital, right? So that's a challenge for all. But the disparity in funding, and when all things considered equal, expertise, credit scores, and skill set and business plans, there's still a huge gap in funding opportunities. So Black business owners are oftentimes, I think it's 30% underfunded from start. So if you come at a business with a deficit, your failure rate is a lot higher. So that's one of the challenges here. Austin is becoming one of the most, if not the most expensive city it actually is in Texas, and one of the fastest growing cities in America. So that becomes a challenge to be an entrepreneur when you have the capital deficit. And what we're doing is partnering with some of our banks to come up with products that are unique for some of our owners, our entrepreneurs, and making certain that they eradicate some of those disparities as best we can.
What about for Black women business owners?
About 1.2% of Black women businesses scale up to $1 million in capital, and that's an abysmal number by any standards. And what although we are the fastest growing demographic in the United States in terms of entrepreneurship, we also yield the lowest sales receipts. So we're having them still at poverty level for their annual sales receipts. So what that means to all of us, not just to Black people, is that you might be creating a recycling poverty, right? So if you're at the poverty level, which is $26,000 roughly for their sales receipts, you are continuing that. So how do we get them at higher sales receipts? And part of the challenge is that, from what we understand, is that some of them weren't welcomed in corporate America, so they decide, I'm going to hang my own shingle.
Right.
An entrepreneur, that fire is whatever it is that dictates that, makes it go. But they're younger, they haven't saved up the capital that they need to help them start their business. So getting them to understand that, hang in there, launch a little bit later or with some better legs underneath you.
Right.
And then the other part to that is coming up with creative and inventive financing and looking at micro-lending and microfinancing, really looking at some programming that we could do with institutions that have the resources and the bandwidth to do so.
So what can consumers here in Austin do to help?
Glad you asked. There's one simple thing that you can do, and we all do it. Be intentional about your spending power. If you're underfunded, you're not marketing like everyone else. So you have to be intentional about where you spend your money. If you want, and if diversity is a concern or lack thereof to you, make certain you seek out opportunities to buy from other and various people.
How do people get to know who is starting up new businesses? How would they get exposed to those?
I work with, it's called MECA, it's a Multi-Ethnic Chamber Alliance. So there are, that's the Hispanic Chamber, that is the Gay and Lesbian Chamber, the Black Chamber, and the Asian American Chamber. So, and there are other groups that are doing similar work to us. You just have to go out and seek it out. So if you Google probably Black business or Asian or Latino or whatever, you could find that out that way. So there are tons of resources.
You said galas raise some money, but what other kinds of, do you have a yearly, annual showcase for these people?
So we have smaller programs that kind of speak to the needs of our membership, and we are able to garner some amazing speakers and some amazing data. Last year we had Richelieu Dennis, who is the Essence Venture Capital Chair and starter of Shea Moisture, which is a multi-million-dollar company that was just recently acquired by Unilever. And so we've just been really fortunate to have some incredible people come through our doors to kind of give inspiration to our entrepreneurs.
Why are the ethnic chambers of commerce important?
As long as you continue to have economic disparities that are based in race in general, or just disparities in general, you'll have a need to have that carved out in society. We make a joke in my industry that we'd love to be put out of business. We'd love for when it occurs where it's a non-thought and all of the disparities have been eradicated. But if you don't have people that look like you, representing you and fighting for you to make certain that you have a seat at the table, there is a thought that prevails that you may not get your just due.
You have a need to connect your people with others. What is that process and what do you do?
Absolutely. So we have various networking opportunities. We make certain that you might see me and my chairs and my board like spiders like everywhere. And so we make certain that we get to know people from various backgrounds so we can connect entrepreneurs. So when someone has a need, we're right there to fill it because we know our entrepreneurs intimately, and we know their business, we know their kids' names, we know quite a deal about them, and we make certain that we provide a resource for them to get plugged in areas that they may not get plugged in. One of our largest events is the Black Elected Officials event, which everyone of every ethnicity is welcome to attend. But this year we had record-breaking numbers. We had more elected officials ever in my entire history of being at the chamber show up. And then we were able to get our entrepreneurs in touch with their elected officials, and people were staying. The elected officials, I had never seen so many of them stay for an entire 2-hour event. We use sponsorships to make it to offset the cost, but we don't want the attendees to pay and that's intentional because we want them to have access to their elected officials in a way that they may not otherwise get.
That is really good news to hear.
Yeah, it's incredible news. I'm really proud of our elected officials for really making themselves accessible.
So to live within Austin is it's very expensive. How are you approaching that with affordable housing for people?
Our chamber works with others who are better suited to solve the issue. We are continuing to advocate for certain policies that might favor small business owners, but the reality is, at the end of the day, market dictates. and it is like trying to close Pandora's box. But I do think things can be done. I do think that if we are thinking a generation or three ahead, we can look at policies that might affect the city negatively. We can use San Francisco as an example of what not to do, and make certain that we institute a protective layer for the underserved and those who need us the most.
I don't know what city doesn't face that particular one as far as the challenge of growth. And Austin has exploded.
If we don't get a handle on having more ability to dictate how our taxes are spent locally, we could find ourselves in serious trouble. And that's no slight to any particular political party, but it's just really understanding how cities understand how they need to be run best.
What is your vision now?
I envision that we have eradicated some of that disparity in terms of economics, that we are no longer known as the most economically segregated city in America, that we've wiped out some of that. I see us as increasing programming that speaks to the scalability of women-owned businesses and entrepreneurs, and making certain that they can grow and they can foster and just do what they do best and create solutions.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate your mentorship, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing for the city of Austin and for the Black Chamber of Commerce. It's just amazing.
Thank you very much.